I haven't formally submitted anything, but I am interested.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, you know what, why don't you, if you want to, kind of you handle the introductions and everything?
Okay, so I'm Dan Gracie. Like I said, I'm the current vice chair. Harry is the current chair. This is a 5-member appointed committee at full capacity. We presently have 4 active members, but 2 of the members are not seeking reappointment at the end of this month. So the only people who presently have appointments that continue beyond the end of this month are Chris and I. The CIPC essentially functions as, I would describe it as a vetting committee for town capital acquisition. And by capital, we're talking about
25 plus thousand
with a useful life of 5 years or more. And so our general process is we solicit requests from various town departments, department heads, and they give us the requests, and then we go through, we review. If we have questions, we bring the department's head in, ask them questions, and then ultimately we place votes. We have a point system in terms of the value, and then based on the points accumulated, in addition to what's available for funding, we make our recommendations, make a motion to move the recommendations forward to the select board, and the select board actually has the power to move on those. We don't have that authority, we just have the authority to recommend. A little bit about our background. So the committee has changed in terms of composition over the years, but we've been fortunate, I'd say, to have people of differing expertise that can contribute their background and so forth. My background, I'm an attorney by training. So my role here has been, I've focused a lot on issues related to the bylaws and so forth. Chris, I'll have Chris introduce himself, but Chris has more of a focus on it. Chris is in kind of the materials trade, so he has more of a focus on some of the building aspects that we're involved in. Harry has a finance background, so Harry's contributed a lot in terms of the overall financial viewpoints of the committee. We've had another current member is Susan. She's an administrator in education. So I think you might have some background in education and academia as well. So, maybe I'll say, Harry, do you want to introduce yourself, and Chris can introduce himself? And
Chris, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Chris Borson. I have, this is my 2nd year out of the 3-year appointment, so I'm the newest member of the committee as sitting in front of you. Very, very enjoyable. It's definitely nice to, as Dan said, I handle materials, a lot of commercial contracts, handy with cars and building and doing stuff of that nature. So the type of requests we get varies anywhere from roof replacement, car replacement. We get a lot of requests through fire, DPW, and everything. So very, very technical. So as Dan said, we really it's our goal to pretty much take all the requests, talk to everybody, figure out the nitty-gritty, what's going on, what's the plan, how much, and then we kind of give the Cliff's Notes at the end to the finance committee and the select board, so they can they get an overview of what we think is the most important, because everybody's request is the top of their list, but we've got to look collectively at the entire town's needs. So I think to Dan's point, having a lot of varied opinions, backgrounds is very helpful, and especially when you're asking questions of people, or if you've got a strength or something like that, definitely very helpful.
I'm Harry Secklin, the chair, and I will say both Chris and Dan have done a very good job of explaining what the committee does. I'll give a little historical perspective. We started in 2008. That was 17 years ago. I'm the only original member left. And it's kind of a story of like a football player or a basketball player who maybe says, I'd like to give it another year or 2 years, but he knows he really should step down. You know, and that's kind of where I am. I've done 17 years on this. When we started, our overall view of all this stuff was about $4 million we were overseeing because of the way it was set up. Now we're at what? Close to, when you consider capital buildings, we're probably close to 40 million. You know, so the committee has grown tremendously and is looking for good new talent to be able to take this committee to the next generation, so to speak, and move forward. And I'm lucky, I'm glad I've had these two on the committee here to help me out. And so that's where I am. I have finances, but, you know, they've done a good job and they will continue to do a good job. So if you decide to join this committee, you're joining a fantastic committee.
And just in terms of the, you know, the day-to-day, we, on our meeting scheduling and so forth, we don't have a firm schedule in the same way that some town boards and committees do. They have a fixed, you know, every other Monday or every other Tuesday kind of thing. We're not like that. We kind of have seasons. So we're kind of into and approaching the slow season right now. In fact, in years past, we've had no meetings for, you know, 3-4 months sometimes in the summer, because there's just, it's where we come in the process, there's just not as much happening. We tend to pick it up a little bit more in maybe September, and at which point we'll often go to 1 meeting a month. And we do try to be pretty firm about keeping it to 90 minutes or less. There are certain times where perhaps if we need 2 people to come in and offer descriptions and they can both only come to one day, we might have to go beyond. But generally we try to be respectful of people's time and keep it under the allotted allowance. And so then we'll start with 1 a month, maybe in September, continue that, and then we really hit our peak, I'd say, between probably November and February. It's about the busiest time, and during that time frame, it wouldn't be unusual some months to meet twice. But again, we'll try to keep it limited to the 90 minutes. And then it starts to slow down by March, and then by like May or June, then we tend to kind of close down for the summer.
The only big thing that we have to, quote, testify is when we go to the town meeting. We prepare a report, we give it to the finance committee and the select board and the town administrator. If the moderator decides that he wants to ask us questions, then we would get up and speak. Other than that, we let the report, the warrants and everything else just flow through. We really don't need to get up. But that's the only external town activity we would have to do to get involved when we do that. Yep. Other than that,
the select board is involved in member appointments now. That's a relatively new process, but you know, at least in terms of the formality of it, it used to be kind of just, oh, you want to join, sure. And now I know in your interactions with Tamika, you've probably learned some about this, but now there's a more formal process where first you have to attend a meeting, and then the existing committee has to, you know, we would generally vote and pass on a written recommendation to the select board, and then the select board, it's up to them to actually formally do the appointment.
Right. I don't have anything. Do you have any questions?
Are there specific areas that the two of you feel like you are lacking in the committee that we would potentially need to recruit?
Yes, absolutely. And at this point, losing specifically Harry and Susan, I'd say we're losing finance and education as our, you know, subject matter experts. So I would be very interested to hear what you would have to say about, you know, your background and what you thought you could bring it in.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you had submitted some correspondence, but I thought most recently you had said you weren't going to be seeking.
It's been a crazy 2 weeks.
Okay, so I guess I would say if you are interested, then we would be interested in hearing from you as well in terms of.
I'm considering it, so I'll speak, but I know
Okay.
you have a time limit, so.
I mean, are there any questions that you have for me? Because I am interested, so I can just say that outright. I did read the report online. I've been digging through the website, so I feel pretty well versed in what the committee does and what the responsibilities would entail. And it's something that I'm up for and excited about the possibility of.
Okay. So if you had to couple of words. What draw you to this committee? Because there's a ton of committees out there. What kind of led you to this one?
That there was a need,
Okay.
that the committee wouldn't be able to function without more people.
Okay, good.
And, you know, I've been interested in becoming more involved civically. I'm not really interested in the public spotlight or any kind of flashy appointment. I'm definitely a behind the scenes girl. I'm analytical by trade.
Good.
I definitely like data analysis and assessment, which is part of my training as a psychologist. So this
Good
role
luck to
very
you two
much,
guys.
yeah, it spoke to me in the way that it is a way for me to give back. That I could really use my skills to contribute to the community in a meaningful way, and knowing that the committee wouldn't be able to function without additional people, just was extra icing on the cake and motivation.
In your training in psychology, did you do any like courses in epidemiology or like statistical analysis?
Oh,
or
yeah.
anything? Okay.
A lot of the assessment work that I do is statistics based and data analysis.
And I asked that question because Susan, as of late, has been doing some of that behind the scenes work that you mentioned, and doing follow up with some of these departments and the heads, and exploring in a little like more of detail some of the background on the money a lot of times, and you know how it adds up. So that could be a need that I think we would have to fill.
These two, we started out originally that this committee was going to be a committee that ran by the formula set by the state. It wasn't going to be any personalities. We try not to be personality, try not to be political, strictly by the numbers. So we take the emotion out of, oh, the fire chief, we got to have DPW, we go by the numbers. So
It's great, because that's what I do every day.
I think you're going to find this to be very good that way. Okay?
And we work very hard at achieving consensus, and a typical vote for us is unanimous.
Right. Do you have any scheduling conflicts? Usually it's Thursdays, the third Thursday of the month when we meet, usually.
Yeah, so my husband is also involved locally. He has some meetings that we would need to navigate, but really I can move everything else around.
Yeah, like Carrie said, Thursday is typical.
I mean, you guys can set the dates as you want.
Yeah, and
but-
usually at the end of every meeting, we'll schedule the next one or two, and everybody's got their phones out with the calendar. This works. Nope, this doesn't. What about we're usually try to. And if there's only three of us, if one can't show up, we don't have a quorum, so we don't have a meeting anyway. So we need to be flexible and make sure everyone can.
Yeah, and we try to do it pretty well in advance. Like Chris said, we'll try to do at least one, sometimes two, or even we've done 3 out during busier seasons. So we generally would know at least a month, often 2 to 3 months in advance.
That's great.
Right. Because, we are not crisis committee. Nothing has to be done exactly tomorrow or the next day. Our biggest problem is getting our department heads to give us stuff and then getting back the information that we need. So that's really the hard part of this. Other than that, I think you'll find it very, very enjoyable to be on this committee. I do. Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, anybody else have questions for Anne Marie?
I don't, Mike, did you want to speak on anything about your?
I'll speak if you're all set.
I'm all set.
Okay. So I am interested, but Tamika was emailing me last week saying, we got to get a meeting between this deadline. So I said, I'm out. I can't commit to anything right now. But then I saw the meeting pop up. I have bylaw meeting right after this, so I was able to make it this evening. I'm an engineer by trade. I work in building automation, so I have a working knowledge. My background's in HVAC, but I have a working knowledge of most of the trades, at least to some overview. So I work in various different buildings, from data centers to hospitals, a little bit of everything. I'm also analytical. I'm interested in being a little bit more involved, and this is something that your schedules something that I could commit to, as long as it's not, we actually meet the third Thursday of every month by law. So if it conflicts with that, I can't commit, but the frequency I can commit to. I'm wondering, where does the money come from though? Cause last I checked, we don't have much of that.
Chris and Dan didn't laugh at that. I don't, no, good question.
What money?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
We've got several sources. What this committee does is recommend. We don't allocate the money. We don't go for grants. We get them, and so one source of money is grants. If a department head has a grant for it, we take that into the numerical mix. If we think that we've got free cash, we'll recommend that it comes from free cash. That's a recommendation. If it is equipment that relates to either water or sewer, we'll recommend that it come from water or sewer, not from the general fund, free cash that is. If it's a huge project, we might recommend a loan. So there are very disparate pieces that we can recommend to of where they come from. Now, in doing that, normally we'll meet with the town administrator because he's got a good handle on the finance. And that's where it would come from. So it depends on how long or how big or how much need, like the fire truck, for example. We passed that last year. Well, all we did is pass it. There was no money committed. We don't commit any bond or anything until we take receipt of something. So if it's an ambulance or we could do a lease too, that's another option. But we've kind of developed a consensus of what we all argue and say, hey, this is what we think we should do, and then we vote on it.
So
What I would say is I think there's some confusion that we don't control anything.
No.
We make a recommendation and FinCom can say, we don't have money, we love your recommendations, but not a single thing is going on the warrant and town's not even gonna see it.
Well,
You'll be looking to recommend this next year.
that makes me a little more comfortable with possibly being on.
Yeah, it's not on you.
like Harry said, we don't. It's not up to us how these things get paid for in the end. We look at it.
suggest.
We look and see what money is out there because that's going to impact how much we would recommend. But ultimately, it's not really.
So the strategizing and the planning kind of portion.
Like we're not going to go through and recommend $10 million worth of stuff when there's $100,000 to spend.
Right.
One of the things the CI Capital Improvement Planning Committee is very important to the town because it's one of the pegs of the financial that bond markets, bonds, everybody that looks at it says, do you have a capital planning committee that looks long-term out 5 and even longer depending on some things? And we do. So that's the valuable leg to this town. As far as spending money, no. As far as recommending, yes.
But we do keep other people on track.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Right.
that's the other thing, because we're looking at a 5-year plan. Well, I know in 2 years, actually next year, CTMS wants its roof redone for 1.5. Another 2 years after that, there's a $3 million project, so we also are kind of, we're focused now, but we're also kind of keeping an eye on long term, because we don't want to your point, we don't want to get a loan and max ourselves out and now the roof's got to be done. What were we thinking?
I do want to say one of the reasons I was interested is because when I was on the school committee, I filled in a vacancy for 6 months, and I did help with although it was limited, I helped with their 5-year plan, and I also took a tour of the schools which I did attend more than a decade earlier, but they're falling apart, so that was also one of my concerns and why I wanted to kind of be active in the town. That's just one example of something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, like Dan said, we have a threshold of 25,000. Anything under that, we don't get our hands involved in.
Okay.
The school has a threshold of 35,000. So if they recommend something to us over 35,000, then we take a look at it because it becomes a town responsibility.
I see.
Under 35, it's the school's responsibility. So we have two kind of
Is that
levels.
across the board?
That's across the
For
board.
all like the physical schools themselves, anything that's shared for the district is a full district thing. So like there are some buildings that have shared parking lots that are full district responsibility. But any, Glenwood, the school, Naquan, those are all Rutland. Rutland's
And Central Tree?
And yeah, all three.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on the relationship
Yeah,
there.
she has to go.
Anne Marie, you are free to leave at any time you want.
Yep. But I just want to
don't
ask
feel
before you
embarrassed.
go, am I correct? It's a yes, you are interested?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank
And
you
then,
very much.
Yeah, the only other thing would be making sure, I guess we'll
Well,
we'll let you know, and then we'll have to make sure you can either make it virtually or in person to the select board meeting, which is literally on the.
Trust me, Tamika will let you know.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to meet
Thanks.
you.
Have a good night.
You too.
So I will probably submit like I guess if you wanna call it application.
Okay.
I don't know when I'll have time to do that, but
As long as it's by I'd say 22nd.
okay, so I'll
We meet
do,
on the 23rd and that'll give them a chance to have that.
so maybe I'll get it in before
Do
summer.
we, and we would
Not
have
us.
to,
But the select board's meeting on the 23rd.
right, but we would have to do a recommendation, right?
Yes,
Right,
Which I think tonight's gonna be our last chance to do that.
it is.
So I think that's why I wanted to make sure we knew from Anne Marie that she was interested, because
Yeah.
I think we would have to do that tonight.
We will.
To pass it along.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's the same, otherwise it would have to be like a.
Well, the other thing is if we have, if she's on and we have three, to Dan's point, we might meet in the end of July or something, we could always,
yeah,
Nat is going up for reappointment for ag, and she already said, school committee is meeting that 23rd. So
Right.
she told Tamika, I can't be at two places. So Tamika said, oh, don't worry, we'll just put you on the list for the July 7th select board meeting, or, whenever. You guys have so many people you've got to crank through on the 23rd. Spreading it out is not gonna
I
make
don't
a big
think
deal.
I think I'd feel better about waiting till,
Okay.
down the
Yeah,
road.
but yeah, definitely don't want to pressure anybody. And these meetings are always open to the public, obviously, so
Right.
you don't have to tell us ahead of time you want to come.
Do you normally record them or not?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if they were, didn't seem like they were. tonight,
Usually they're
so.
recorded, they're on the YouTube page through
Okay.
Rutland's thing. Every once in a while, there's a hiccup and they're not, but we get the minutes in pretty, consistently and everything, so if you don't
If-
feel like watching hour-and-a-half long meetings, you can.
Personally, being doing this for 17 years, I'd like to see you get on right away if you're interested. Start the year off right. Okay, so that's just,
Well,
because I know if it's a month or two later and we've had meetings, now you're catching up. I know you can look at this, but you haven't been a part of it, Mike.
I guess I would just say, I'm not aware of any requirement that the letter of interest has to be on file. I just don't, and that could probably come later. I just don't think the three of us can vote without a formal, like, yes, interested kind of, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like she gave us.
Yeah.
And again, this is no pressure. If you don't know if you're interested or not, like Chris said, we can do it later. But I think if you were to say you were interested, you could probably do the letter of interest later.
I am interested, I just
Okay,
need time to put that together,
a week or two or a month?
like a week or two. But
Okay, so we could probably do a letter of interest saying.
I didn't
that-
want to confuse Tamika after I
My
just
point will
emailed.
be, Mike has shown a letter of interest. Whether he submits or not, that's up to him.
And if he doesn't submit, it's not going to go to the select board.
It's
So
not gonna
yeah,
go, so we could still do the letter of interest.
I think
on
so.
that.
I think, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That was just what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I didn't mean to confuse people. I didn't know you guys had the meeting when I said that I was gonna hold off. I didn't know you
Okay,
had the
okay.
meeting coming up. So, yeah, apologize for any confusion.
So how do you, Mike, how would you feel fitting in here, or what you bring to the table? I mean, you're an engineer, so how does that help us in looking at equipment, looking at buildings, looking even at possible land for buildings on, How do you feel that would help the committee?
Well, I do get to see a lot of, I guess I'm usually on the results end of a capital improvement, whether it be at a hospital or a school.
Okay.
Or something that I'm part of. I do analyze things a lot. I'm not really sure because I would have to think about that, but
Okay. I know it's an oddball question, but I was, you know,
I'm very passionate about the longevity and like having heating and cooling is something that I've had a passion for. So
Okay.
having stuff like that, not letting things fall apart. And I did see something I wanted to ask you about though. Is I did see like, is it limited to just new projects, or could it be? Do you guys do like revitalization stuff? Because it's not just, oh, we have to get a new truck. Like you could get a used truck, or is it?
We see used
Oh,
trucks.
okay.
Yeah.
You do that stuff too.
Actually,
That-
DPW, most of DPW stuff comes used.
Okay, that's good to know.
And those are the type of questions we would ask, you know, if you're getting rid of a used truck, can you sell it? Is there any resale value? Can we recoup some costs? Is there a lease option? You know, we ask these questions, you know, can we spread these payments out, you know, so it's all on the table, and those are the type of questions or outside of the box thinking that we like having people with different backgrounds to ask those questions of the DPW director or the fire chief. You know, cause it may tweak a number one way or the other.
I'll give you two examples. One is DPW requested new dumps for the trucks,
Okay, the dump body.
the dump body, because the truck was good.
Yeah.
So, and then that dump body, which is made of steel, rusts out.
Right.
What he wants is stainless steel. So now if the truck goes, we can move those bodies to the next one. So that's a place of just partial replacement.
Right.
Then we've had a situation where also from the DPW, the water department is requesting a truck to or a new vehicle to replace the old water one, because the car they use for the water and sewer is the old police car. So we were thinking, if we take the F-350 that the fire department has is coming up in about 2 years, 2 to 3 years. If we take that and give that to the DPW, then we only have to replace one car, because we already paid for this one. And then he gets a fully functioning F-350 for water and sewer with a bed on it. So those are the kind of things that we take a look at. As far as buildings are concerned, I don't think we really had any big issue. Most of that has gone through the administrator, and other than maybe looking at the senior center for replacing siding and all that kind of stuff to see, but
We've had some building stuff come in front of us, but for a variety of reasons, it wasn't really ripe for us to deal with.
right. Right.
Well, buildings and that kind of thing is where I think I could be of help. I do, at least in my mindset, I always, when I plan something, if I'm planning something for a customer, I always look at the long term. I want to do it right the first time, despite what it's going to cost.
Right.
But I always try to make it as good as it can be the first time, rather than do what unfortunately is often happens in government projects, which is do it just enough and then redo it 5 years later. Try to avoid that.
One of the buildings that we have been discussing and we've been putting off is the fire station. We had a quote for 10 million. It's gonna cost $1 million to do the design. And we've discussed that lengthily, but it wasn't right time in the way we wanted to look at it. So that's one building that we were looking at. We're looking at replacing the town hall and all that. But none of the design work or anything really comes through us. Okay, that's the admin that takes care of that stuff.
Understood.
Well, or Mike, to your point, you know, doing HVAC and doing things, you know, I do windows and doors mostly, so I'm looking at things holistically. If we're gonna replace the windows, but then a year later you say, then we wanna do the siding, I go, if you're, you know, depending on how you're replacing those windows, you might as well do the siding, you know, at the same time and hire the same guy and see if you can get a reduced rate, you know, instead of nitpicking at some of these things, then you go, oh, now when we replace the siding next year, the windows aren't gonna tie in properly, and, you know, so looking at things holistically, because we're getting requests from some of the department heads who, it's not their forte, that's not what, you know, they just know it needs to get done.
Right.
Trying to get a bid, trying to get an accurate number, you know, so sometimes we'll to, as Harry said, think outside the box, see if we can try to, kill two birds with one stone, get a better deal, something like that. The other thing though is when getting those bids is important, because you don't want to make a recommendation on a project and then find out, okay, we approve it, we get a bid, or it goes out and all of a sudden it's twice as much, and you go, well, this wasn't, whoa, not what we were expecting.
And I'll tell you, Chris is right, because this town has a habitual habit of trying to get things done, and then 5 or 8 years later, we're spending $1 million, $2 million to fix it instead of doing it right, or rebuild it inside instead of doing it right. So that's one thing I'd commend them for, is to do it right the first time.
So one comment or one example, I guess, would be if I knew that you were planning to redo the roof of a building in 2 years, and then, or let's say 5 years, but you're gonna replace the HVAC unit that's a rooftop unit a year before that, that makes no sense. You're gonna do them together.
CTMS has the roof next year and the HVAC 2 years after. So to your point, that's something I was gonna say, no, you do them.
Right.
And those are things.
And if you're bonding it, you might as well bond it for the 2
Absolutely.
instead of the 1.3,
And those are the things we've been able to more clearly identify over the last couple of years, now that we have this 5-year. Like, 5-6 years ago, Harry, we didn't have that. We're just going year by year, and
Right.
just
And because we didn't have that, if something came to us and it didn't get asked for the second year, we really had no plan out there.
went out into limbo,
Now
yeah.
you do have that,
yeah.
Which is great. Yeah.
And we can look at it and say, well, this doesn't make sense right now, but if you shift this into FY28, it looks better matched up with some of the other
Right.
anticipated needs for that year.
That's the other thing committee does. Just because it's requested in this year doesn't mean it comes in this year. We'll figure out what year we think fits in with what we're doing. So that's the oversight that this committee does and all that. And I say it again, it is a valuable leg of the community in terms of the financial aspect of what we do recommend for this town.
I would like to know why there's talks about replacing the fire department building, because I don't think it's really that old, is it?
It's not that old. I believe it's more of outgrowth. They don't have sleeping quarters for the staff.
At all?
They may have, because we just signed an order or a contract with the
Police?
regional.
dispatch,
Yeah,
regional,
dispatch.
thank you, where they are gonna be moving to Auburn. That's gonna free up that space. So, do we need a new fire station, and how are we gonna do it? Are the police and them gonna split it out? Part of that capital expense will be coming to us, but through the administrator probably for our review.
Good to know.
It's been a work in progress.
Yeah,
Well, we've been waiting for that part of that component to fall into place, because now you go, okay, well, now we don't need to look at can we retrofit the existing now that that space can be utilized? Now maybe we go, okay, now it is worth having somebody spend some money to make a design, now that we know, can we just add a second story above dispatch, or whatever?
the other thing that we haven't gotten into, but I think the new committee will, is looking at, I'll give you an example. There's a piece of property that's going into the land trust because of taxes. Property's over on Central Tree. It's valued at about $400,000, has about, I think, an acre and a half to it. So for $400,000 to buy an acre and a half and a building, would it be brought to the committee to look at as a potential for, I'll give you an example, recreation? Recreation has a building, they have a place to store all their stuff, they got room out back, and it costs the town $600,000. How would that compare to putting up a brand new building for them? Is that financially feasible? So that's something that might come into your purview in the future.
Kind of like how, what Holden did with repurposing their old police department as a recreation center.
Right. I mean, I can't say it's taken off the tax rolls because the taxes are not being collected. They're just part of the sale now. But that's something I think that thinking outside the box to be able to help the town. And I know that currently if they go that way, recreation currently has about $500,000 in funds in it that could be used to buy the house, so it wouldn't be an effect on the town. The town would then have to modernize it, bring it up to code, make it ADA accessible, all that, but it wouldn't cost us from a standpoint of having our own recreation right there on Central Tree. So again, that was my thought, thinking out the box. And I've talked with the past administrator about it, and he let me know about certain things I should be aware of if you do that. But that could be something that, might come through to look at. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, we get a diversity of requests.
yep.
Keeps it interesting.
Sure.
Mike, anything else?
No, I'm just gonna go,
I know you got another meeting,
I'm
so.
gonna get ready for my bylaw, meeting, and if you're done in time, I encourage you to sit down now.
Okay, I just might do that, come over.
'Cause we're
Where are
just-
you meeting?
In the, what do they call it, the Redfield,
Right here?
the select board room. I
Oh,
don't
so
know what
yeah,
to call it.
okay.
I don't know what it's called, but
Okay,
right there, so, thank you.
good.
Thanks, Mike.
you.
You're welcome.
Good to meet you.
Thanks. Nice meeting you as well.
Okay, so what do you two think?
We need people, so I would say both.
Okay. They both seem capable.
Yeah.
They both have, what I think you need is some analytical mind to it too, But since
I
I'm not gonna
think-
be here, you're gonna be working with them, so that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. It's up to you two.
Well, you're voting.
I'm voting, but,
Yeah, I think we would have to qualify it, obviously, because Mike hasn't formalized his interest yet. So his would have to be like a qualified recommendation, assuming he completes the process.
right,
But other than that, I would be a yes
okay,
on both.
all right.
Yeah, I think, to the point of analytical, having the different backgrounds, to your point, the only piece we're losing that would be nice to replace would be the financial aspect of it. But, that gives us an
Keep that
opportunity to.
Opening posted and.
Yeah,
I will tell you, I do plan on from time to time sitting in on your meetings. I'm not gonna walk away. Just in case you have any questions or whatever it is, I'm a phone call away. Call me for anything you need. But I'm a true believer. If I was a quarterback, I walk off the field. If you guys haven't learned anything by now, then that's my fault. And I don't think it's gonna get any better. So I really think you guys have come a long way in that time. But I just want, I'm a phone call away.
awesome.
Good.
Okay,
So I guess, what do we have to put to a motion for individually or both of them, or?
Let's do them individually, just
Yeah.
because it's going to be, there would be that qualification. Yeah, so I would make a motion that the CIPC recommend Anne Marie Gavorden, I believe is the pronunciation of her last name, as a new member.
and write a letter of recommendation to,
To the select board for appointment.
I'll second that.
Should we do a roll
You
call?
about,
Yeah.
yeah, you done, Chris? Just
Yeah.
about, okay. Roll call,
Force and I?
Gracie, aye.
segment I.
Just point of clarification, who is going to be writing the letter? Because I think technically it says the chair, or the chair can designate somebody to do it. So I can.
That's Harry's
I-
decision.
I don't, if
Well,
you wanna do it or you want
Which
me to
one-
do it.
No, one of you should do it,
Okay.
only because you're gonna be on the committees going forward.
All right, so Chris and I can discuss that then.
Okay,
And then, does somebody want to make a motion for Mike Pontos Jr.?
I'll make a motion that Mike Pantos Jr. Be recommended to the CIPC. And his would be for I won't know the term. Mika might know that. Recommended to the CIPC with a letter of recommendation being sent to the select board.
I would second that with the qualification that he would have to complete his formally complete his letter of interest in advance of the,
Yeah, he has expressed interest that he will do that, and that's why we're voting. So we could work that in somehow.
so that would be my second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. Roll call.
Horse and I.
Gracie, aye.
Second, aye.
And it's a 1 in a million shot, actually trying to hold it, trying to hold it under thing. But if that tank is heated up, it would bend. The release is supposed to be-
Okay. I mean, we already have a yes vote on the board, so just so you know.
Okay, that's good to know. It's good to always have that in the back pocket. Should we do the minutes?
Yeah,
I read them, they look good.
Okay.
okay. That's one thing I'm gonna miss is your minutes, Chris. You do a wonderful job on them. Yep, okay. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I will make a motion to accept the minutes of the CIPC meeting from January 23rd, 2025.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, any discussion?
No discussion.
Roll call,
Horse and I.
Gracie, aye.
Second, aye. Okay, done. Couple of things. Does anybody have any questions before we get started about anything or comments? Couple of things. Number one, there was a discussion, I don't know if you've seen it, going around of the street sweeper that we approved 2 years ago. And that the fire chief brought up the fact that he did not see where it was validated and voted on. But I know we brought it up at the town hall meeting, and we voted on it there. So I don't know if anything will get to you on that, but if it is, I believe we have the research to do that. So I don't think it's gonna be a big issue.
So what was the?
The street sweeper,
Yeah.
that's gonna go through sewer and water,
Yeah.
we voted on that. It hasn't yet been purchased. So the question is, should it be purchased because was it really voted on?
Oh, yeah.
For
It
it.
wasn't on a warrant, so yeah.
I don't, you know. So, and that was, I thought that was on the warrant for the town hall meeting. I could be wrong. I have a book at home. I didn't look at it yet. But I just want you to know that might be an issue that comes before you.
Okay.
The second thing is the parking lots. Wachusett is not going to deal with our parking lots. They want to establish their own capital stabilization fund for their stuff. So the parking lots are still going to be our responsibility. And I do have the name of the individual that agreed to come out, walk it with you to see what the cost was going to be. I don't have his name with me, but I'll get out.
Just email to us. Yeah.
Yep. On that, because the first quote we got was gonna be about 2 million to do all the parking lots. The other quote we got from a place in Acton was gonna be over 4 million. The guy I talked to says it might be close to $4 million. But we're gonna need a good solid quote on that. Well, we don't need a quote. What we need is an idea of what he thinks it's gonna cost for us. Then we go to the town administrator and say, let's do an RFP out there. And then but at least we know what the actual, or what the estimate will be for that. He'll wanna walk the parking lot, so one of you will have to do that with him. You know, it'll be the 3 schools, Glenwood, and it's pretty expensive. Some places you need concrete sides, some you don't. Some places you can dig up just do a surface and repave, other ones you don't. So, and the guy I'm talking to is from Trap Rock down here in Holden.
Okay.
They do asphalt too and all that kind of stuff, but they're the ones that make it, so if they do it, it might be a little cheaper than most on that. So I'll get you that name, Dan.
Okay, good.
Let me see if there's anything else. Equipment. You saw very little stuff on the town warrant. One thing, actually, 2 things. One was the ambulance, and one was the sidewalk, okay? Everything we had was proposed to Austin. But because of the budget and because of the way things were, the only thing we took was the sidewalk piece that came out of our capital stabilization fund. Ambulance is gonna be on a vote. That'll be 2 years when that comes in. The other stuff, it sounded like it came out of capital, but it didn't. He just called it capital for the payroll system that we had, mostly accounting stuff.
Okay.
But that was the only one. So we did recommend, I talked with him about it. I actually told him I didn't want the ambulance. I thought we needed something more because the ambulance wouldn't really be up for 2 to 3 years. And if it is up, you can still use the ambulance. You just can't use it as your frontline ambulance. You can use it as a support ambulance.
Well, I had a question, because I thought at one point, didn't Seth come into the select board and talk about like regionalization of the fire department? So if we have more towns joining, are we going, because I know they said, oh, that ambulance 3 came over from Barry or wherever, so I go, should we be getting a new ambulance, so everybody else who just joins this, or should we, are we gonna have other ambulance, which, I think that's why, I think we said, we can order it, but as long as we can back out of this contract, cause if
Right.
this regionalization happens and all of a sudden we realize, hey, there's other viable ambulances, why should we be buying a brand new one?
And
because of the contract?
the select board did approve a grant for that, so he could look into doing that.
Okay, I wasn't, I didn't know the specifics of it,
Yeah,
but I
and
thought it,
I learned into a little bit. It's really involved when it comes to fire.
okay,
Because like DPW, that particular organization doesn't have response time. The fire department, now who's responsible for, who does it actually? Which district? So it's pretty involved. I don't know when we're gonna get the information back. I don't know when he started it, but yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Do we spend another $500,000 and do they have ambulances? So, I know, I was at a meeting in Holyoke for the select board individuals about, a month ago. And there were 4 towns in the southwestern part of the state that were all together. Not one of them had their own fire department, not one of them had their own ambulance. They all contracted out, except for the fire, and then they shared that. So they were being pretty lean on the stuff that they did. We're fortunate, we probably have one of the most well-funded fire departments in the state. Almost up to snuff in terms of personnel and equipment, so. But you're gonna be getting that regular request now for fire department every 5 years for the clothing, for the fire gear, because the state code passed. You can't have the old stuff anymore. The current ones they're using have to be disposed of and replaced with, and the reason was because of possible, when the suit gets hot, it gives off certain chemical odors, which is shown, I believe, to cause cancer. So the new ones don't get that hot and they don't smell, so you don't have that odor coming off.
Seems like a good thing.
So that's about $35,000 a year. And that was this year. Next year, next 5 years, and it's kind of replacing it every year. So that'll probably be coming through regularly to you. Kind of like, well, when we did the police cars used to come through our committee years ago. I don't know if you were on that, Dan, when we did it.
No, I think by the time I had started, they had stopped just because of the lifespan was too short.
Yeah, and that was because we said, number one, you're going back now 17 years. Police cruisers were costing probably about $35,000.
Yeah.
And they were being every 5 years they were being, rebought. We didn't think that was viable anymore, so we went to leasing, which came out of the operating budget. And then I guess this year they decided to pay for the whole thing. So if you needed a cruiser, it wasn't going to be leased anymore. We were going to pay cash for it. So a lot of that stuff has changed. And hello?
I think I got the wrong meeting.
Oh,
CFC?
you're welcome. We have an opening. on that. So that, a lot of that will change and what you're gonna see some of that stuff come through on that. But you already know the rules, regs on those, so you guys can make that decision. But that's pretty much all I have to say unless you have questions for me.
I think questions for you will probably be on a rolling basis.
Okay. Yeah, I just, again, I love the committee. I've been a part of probably 25, 30 people that sat on this committee. Everybody was different. Everybody had their own personalities, their own skill sets, but it continued. There was a point that we were down to 3 people for a couple of years, and then we started to build. Back in that time, I asked a lot of people if they wanted to be on, because there wasn't a formal process out there. The town wasn't really looking, so it was up to me as a chair to kind of ask questions and bring people in, kind of like I did with you guys. You know, you had said you had an interest, I met with you, you didn't fill out any fancy forms and that kind of stuff. Nope. Right.
Didn't go to any select board meetings.
That's right. So a lot of that has changed, I'm assuming for the good. We'll see how that works out. But at least it's getting out to the towns for people who want to be interested in sitting on a committee.
Well, Harry, we definitely want to thank you on the record and just personally for 17 years of service, for making sure that the committee survived through these lean periods. And obviously this month was challenging in terms of timelines too. And thank you for making tonight's meeting happen and making sure we have people here and that this committee can continue.
Yeah, I think you guys will do a good job.
Yeah, no.
I think you've had a good couple of years at 3. Well, this was your second time around, right? You got our third.
No, this is. Well, I think I first filled an open term. Okay. This is 8 years now.
Is it?
It's yeah.
Oh
I think
my God.
fall, like late summer or fall 2017. So
your job is to best my time now.
We'll see. we'll see. Not even halfway there, so we'll see.
But I think you find it's a fairly easy committee. It's
Yeah.
not that difficult.
Do you know where we're at with the TA? Because I know we've got the interim TA who can only work 24 hours. So as far as everything flowing through the TA for next year, getting those requests, are we gonna have a difficult timeline, or is that gonna be a lot on, what should our expectations be? Or hopefully we'll have a full-time TA in place by then?
I will tell you this, after tonight's conversation, I'm gonna have the TA reach out to you, by either sitting here in a committee or you reaching out to him, so that you hear firsthand of what the process is gonna be.
Okay.
Explaining the process to him. You're welcome to sit down with him at any time, his door is always open. But I'm talking to him on a regular basis, so I can kind of set something up for you. But I think he'll probably follow the same line that Austin did. You've already got your 5 years, and if there's anything new, Tamika will get it to you, type of stuff. I'm pretty sure. As far
We
as
can
the
try
TA,
to get him to come to either July or August or
First
something.
meeting, just, to lay down the, make sure we're all on the same
Yeah.
page.
yeah, he's a good guy. He'll work with you good. But as far as the TA is, according to him, we're looking at 6 months
Okay.
before we get a TA. So we're looking start time January 1st possibly for the new TA. Because there's a lot involved and more than I thought.
Just so we have an expectation, that's all.
Yeah. And he's very responsive too. He'll get back to you. You have a question for him or you ask him, he'll get back to you within a day.
Okay.
Unless it's very complicated, within a day. So, yeah, if that answers your question, Chris.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Anything else?
Should we, tentatively pick a day, maybe for sometime in July? Do you have vacation or anything?
Yeah, we can,
It's fair, you know what I mean?
there's, that last week is not good, but I could do,
17th or 24th?
the 17th, probably not. I can do the 24th though.
All right, let's pencil in the 24th.
And feel free to change the time, anything you want to do. I mean, that's the way I ran it for years, but
I like the time. I like Thursdays.
6 o'clock still work for you?
6 is good.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll be looking to see when you guys are meeting, so, and what's on the agenda. And Dan, if I come across something ahead of time that I think you should be aware of, I'll let you know,
Okay.
just so you have a heads up. Okay.
I think you've got the flash drive with everything, all the pertinent information
Yeah, I
on it,
downloaded it all
don't
to
you?
this
So-
anyway, so that was still a lot of,
there's
Harry and Joe Becker had collected a lot of documents over the years, so
Yeah.
it's all in there going back to, I don't know if it's 2008, but
I don't think it go
2012
back to-
anyway.
But it goes back a
Yeah.
long way. Yeah, I mean, in 2008, I think our biggest recommendation, the total money we spent in 2008, I think was like $20,000.
wouldn't even look at it today.
I wouldn't even look at that today.
Wouldn't even meet our threshold.
That's right, yeah. So as the town grew and the assets grew, this committee grew too, so it'll do well. Anything else?
No, I think Chris and I can discuss, outside of the meeting then, since it's not officially a CIPC decision, who will write the letter, and we'll get that into the select board for their next meeting. So hopefully we can get one or ideally two people appointed.
I'd like to see both people.
I would like that as well.
To get you off.
And then we'd only have one remaining opening, which would be nice.
Right.
But I don't have anything else for today.
And if I might make a suggestion, once you four start working together, now you'll kind of feel what you need to replace in this one for whoever.
Yep, and we can have some time to do that too.
Right. Okay. We're good. Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Wow, 7 o'clock.
Efficient.
We're gonna get you home early. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any good discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
aye, okay.